I was appointed Chief Executive of Abbey National Building Society in 1984, having previously worked for Gillette, the razor blade company, for some 20 years. Now, one might say, what on earth has shaving got to do with finance? I was on the marketing side with Gillette, had no knowledge of the financial world at all, but was employed by Abbey National because they wanted to adopt a strategy of change. They realized that the financial services world was going through a situation of change, and that building societies probably didn't have that much of a great future. At about the same time, there was new legislation for building societies, and within that legislation there was just a minuscule paragraph which enabled building societies to change status and convert. But the commissioner, a chap called Michael Bridgman, who had written the legislation, was fairly convinced that building societies wouldn't change because the hurdles he had set were too high. Abbey National had been a building society for 140 odd years, and therefore was steeped in the ethos of mutuality. I first approached my chairman a couple of years after I joined, and it took me 2 years to convince the chairman and the board that the financial services world was changing and that building societies needed to change and have more freedom to compete in a rapidly changing environment. And so I directed them towards the bottom line, not just for the sake of the bottom line, but really for a focus, so that we were aiming each year to generate profits. And I have to say that as a mutual, Abbey National didn't refer to them as profits, they referred to them as surpluses. And I remember at one of my first meetings, I said, "What's all this business about surpluses?" And they said, "Well, that's what we made." And I said, "I thought that's what choir boys wore." You know, so it was sort of a whole change of ethos of changing them from that surplus choir boy image into the grown-up world. We did eventually go to our shareholders, and we had 7 million shareholders. Now, 7 million customers is an awful lot, and yet we had to get 3.5 million of those members to vote, and 75% of those who voted to vote in favour. Statistics, I know, but big hurdles to come up against. But we got a message across, and eventually when it came to the vote, we got the vote and we changed status. We were the first. Nobody else followed us for 4 years, so we had a 4-year lead. So there were no precedents. Nobody had done it before. Nobody knew what to expect. We didn't know what to expect, but we did eventually change status and become a bank. We had a lot of money. We'd raised over £1 billion from conversion. We sat on our hands for a couple of years, and then we bought a company called Scottish Mutual. And we bought that because we wanted to sell life assurance products through our branch network. There were changes in the way life assurance could be sold, and that was hugely successful for us. We then expanded further. We had checkbooks. We went into treasury business because we had a big balance sheet. We bought a company called First National. We bought a company called Cater Allen and the money markets in London. We bought an ex-building society in Jersey and the Channel Islands. We set up operations in France, Spain and Italy, and we expanded. And the share price went from £1.30 to £15 in a matter of some 7 or 8 years. And dividend went up progressively, and Abbey National did very well. What does one learn from that? Well, when we were a building society, we did realise and we did have the foresight to see that the financial services world was changing and that we needed to adapt and change ourselves. So when you see something in this world and you see an opportunity, it's very important that you grab it, because opportunities don't come twice. Do the research and planning thoroughly. Consult 1 or 2 colleagues, but not too widely. Have the courage of your convictions. Do something about it. See the opportunity and act.